that was one of the hardest things. Everyone kept saying, what are you doing? And I said, I don't know, because every day is different. There's a new thing to this, coronavirus every day. So, we were getting hit left, right, and centre.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. With no choice but to adapt to survive, many restaurants threw all their energy into takeaway, literally overnight. Others saw their best chance was to temporarily close the doors and take a moment to realise the enormity of the situation before acting. Matt Moran is one of Australia's most celebrated chefs. An advocate of a paddock-to-plate food system, he's behind many of our great restaurants, including award-winning Aria, overlooking Sydney Harbour. Matt, you're a part of the Restaurateur group, which includes lots of pubs and many restaurants like Aria, Chiswick, Paddo Inn, B, North Bondi Fish. What was the impact in those early days for you and that decision that you made to close the doors literally the day after the government's mandate?
Oh, look, it was a pretty scary time, I have to say. It was. I remember sitting down having a board meeting with Bruce, and we've got a chairman that sort of oversees us. And I remember we were sitting there going through figures and thinking, all right, what happens if this thing sort of takes hold and we reduce our revenue by 10%, and then someone said, well, this is what it looks like if it was 20%. And in that same conversation, someone actually put up the figures, what would happen if it was 50%, and everyone sort of laughed and thought, oh, well, that's not going to happen. And I think it was within 10 days we were completely shut. So not only did it happen, but it's no revenue. It was you wouldn't dream of it. You wouldn't. I would never have imagined it in my wildest dreams that something like this would have shut us down completely. And I suppose at first it was just shock. What do we do? What do we do with the staff? What do we do with the food left in the venues? It was just a bit of confusion, I think, for the first day or two.
Can you give us a scale? Give us a scale of the businesses and how many people you employ. Just give us an idea of the amount of people impacted.
So Solityl's a management company. So it's it doesn't have assets. It manages these venues for the owners, and Bruce Solomon, who's been my partner for 20 years, him and I are involved in about 12 venues together, and then there's about another 16 on top of that, which are mainly owned by him and his family. There's a couple of other partners that they manage some for. So together there was about, I think about 1,700 staff that were out of work within a day.
Wow.
And some very big businesses. Opera Bar is one of the busiest and biggest places in probably in the country, and big pubs like the Golden Sheaf. And all the pubs in Newtown, the Bank and the Clock and Paddington for one, and so it was Aria, obviously, our flagship. It was it's a big business, and I suppose it took us a couple of weeks to really sort of work out how to close it all completely down, because it's like a big ship. You just can't sort of turn it off. You got to slowly dock the thing, I suppose.
So what is the status of the establishments? I know they vary and they feed into different sectors within the food industry. Without knowing, obviously, what's lying ahead, what's the status of the company and those various restaurants?
Look, we're lucky, I suppose. We a lot of the venues are owned, and a lot of them are government leases. Which we hope they're going to be very kind to us when we come back. I think we will be in a good position, hopefully, to open every venue again. We had a little bit of capital in the company, so our first initial reaction was to look after our staff. And Bruce and I had long conversations about that. And one thing that we probably jumped a bit earlier than anyone else, and we decided that we'd pay everyone's entitlements. The last thing I wanted, Anthony, was to the world go to shit and someone saying, well, Matt Moran didn't pay his staff, so we paid out all entitlements. We even paid some long service leave to some. Some didn't want to take it, so they left it there. But all holidays and things like that, we paid out, which is an immense expense to Bruce and I. But I just think that we didn't want to have that liability hanging over our heads. And even now we're still going through the process of making sure our suppliers are happy, and whether they were paid out in full or whether they will, let us sort of come back to it when we reopen.
You've been an influential chef for quite a long time, and you've had some ups and downs and experience. The GFC in 2008. And, you and I were in brief conversation about me penning an article about comparisons until this got a bit out of hand and was completely different. Can you compare anything to what's happening right now? And how did you feel in those early couple of weeks about the industry and its potential in the future?
I've never experienced anything like this. And, just the ups and downs and the emotions that go with it after it. I'm a pretty positive person always, but it was pretty hard to try and work out, what's going to happen and whether you lose something that you've been working for 30 odd years. It was the first initial reaction is, right, well, let's not panic. Let's look after our staff, look after our suppliers, look where we are, talk to our landlords. And the government kept sort of rolling, every day into something different, which I suppose that was one of the hardest thing. Everyone kept saying, what are you doing? And I said, I don't know, because every day is different. There's a new thing to this, coronavirus every day. So, we were getting hit left, right, and centre. And I suppose that's why we didn't open straight away for takeaway. We sort of just wanted to sit back and see. We didn't want to rush into anything and spend money into anything and having it not work. So, it's only now that we've actually started opening up, and, Chiswick obviously being the first one, and then hopefully North Bondi within the next week or two also. I think it would be hard to do an Aria takeaway, so that probably won't happen. And I think Chop House in the city and Barangaroo, because of the locations, probably won't work either. So we're sort of, shackled on just opening. Maybe some of the pubs might open to do pieces and stuff, but out of my venues, it'll probably only be Chiswick and North Bondi, which at least brings in some revenue. But what it really does is it brings the team together a little bit. I've got all my head chefs from nearly every restaurant working at Chiswick at the moment, which is kind of fun at the same time.
Wow, that'd make a pretty amazing team.
Yes, so it's very top heavy, to put it that way. But that's they're the guys that have been with me for a long time and very loyal and I think they're kind of excited by it too. It's not very. A lot of them have worked together prior, but it was a long time ago. Francois from Chiswick and Tom from Barangaroo House and Laura, who's sort of my right hand, they used to work together years and years ago at Aria, and you got Joel there too, of course.
So you spent a little bit of time to sort of not panic, to try and sort of weave through all of the, as you say, sort of daily changes. Do you feel like that there is an element of a light at the end of the tunnel, and has that sort of allowed you to, because Chiswick starts this week with takeaway, and has that sense of perhaps, there is a light there and there's opportunities, has that triggered the takeaway model?
Yeah, look, it still is changing, and whether the light, I can't see the light at the end of the tunnel as yet, because 1 minute it looks as though we're nearly got it beat and we're going to eradicate it completely, and then all of a sudden things spike again. I think for us or any restaurant, or pub to reopen, it really either has to be eradicated or there is a vaccine. I can't see how we can reopen with social distancing. It just doesn't work. Our margins are hard enough to make at the moment, prior, at 100% capacity, and to then sort of put those restrictions onto us. I just can't see. I can't see it happening. Once we start paying staff and rent and everything again, just to make it really sort of clear that those last 2-3 weeks that we were operating, we were running at massive losses, losses 4 or 5 times of what we would lose when we're just completely closed. You can't just turn your staff off and everything else off in a single go, in a single day. So that was when the real bleed happened. And that's why I think a lot of restaurants are probably in trouble, because they bled out all their capital. And then, when they finally did close, there's nothing left to pay staff and what they were owing their suppliers. We were lucky in that sense, I suppose. But, looking for the future, the world has changed. Huck, it's changed completely, and maybe there are, takeaway things going to happen. Once we do reopen, maybe it'll be a bit of both. I suppose for me, the great thing is that I've had a lot of time. I come to work every day still in my office. I can drive in, and even through the worst of it, I was still coming into work and just in my office and just sitting there and working and thinking. And for me, it's been a great time to reflect on what I've been doing for the last 10 years and thinking up new things. There's things that now that I want to do a little bit differently, maybe.
Well, I was just about to ask you that, because this period of time has allowed hospitality workers for the first time to actually consider things, because they're so busy and frantic, and their immediacy of service. Do you think we'll see different things from restaurants when everything is opened up again? And especially having a restaurant like Aria, which is a magical experience for many overlooking Sydney Harbour. What do you think will happen to your restaurants? Do you think there will be a change?
Yeah, I think there will be a change. I don't think the model really is sustainable now. When you think about, rents, and you think about wages and food costs, and, all the other things that contribute to make a restaurant, whether it's sustainable. I think, labour is a big thing that we've got to watch. So maybe, things won't be that labour intensive anymore. Just changing the model or tweaking it in wherever we can. Aria is it's an owned restaurant, so it's going to be there for forever, hopefully. And it's always been incredibly successful. But it's always, ran at high labour costs and high food costs because of the product that we do there. And I don't think fine dining will be dead. I think it might change a little bit. I just think it'll have to adapt to the new environment. Maybe it may not do the numbers that it used to do, and maybe it might be, I don't know, it might be, a little bit quicker, easier. I'm not sure, and it all depends on what happens with tourism and the Opera House and whether people flood back into the city to go to work, or whether people decide to work from home. There's a lot of those things that are still up in the air, and I suppose we won't know until it all comes back together again.
There's been all sorts of recommendations bouncing around about the sort of restrictions on restaurants as they open up again. And there's all sorts of thoughts out there, some of them not received well with industry, others keen for them. What would you like to see happen? How would you like to see the restaurant industry opened up that would help restaurants?
Oh, look, there's no question. If we eradicate it, or we get a vaccine and we open back up, to be able to give the restaurant industry a big kick, it would be things like freeing up FBT, fringe benefits tax, and whether it's a year or 2 years or whatever, but what that would create would be employment. Getting staff back in and and working, and hopefully it would give the industry a bit of a boost that it desperately needs. I still don't understand the FBT, fringe benefits tax from years ago, because to me it never made sense of putting it in place because it just stifles restaurants and stifles employment. And it's just, I think it would be a good way to sort of give our industry a bit of a boost.
You've always been a big champion of producers, and you've even made programs about it. Do you think things will change in regards to our connection with producers, and how have those conversations been for you? Because you're a big champion of a lot of the people you deal with.
Yeah, look, it's obviously being a producer too. It's one thing that's actually going all right at the moment. Meat prices are still up. They've come down a little bit since the last sort of few weeks, but they spiked when it started to rain because everyone had grass again and everyone needed stock. But I was just texting Charlie Arnott the other day, who I'm a massive fan of, who's a farmer from Borowa. He's got beef cattle and pigs and fat lamb, and I started the Thankful for Farmers with a Thankful group last year, and which is a big organisation to save or to raise money for farmers. And Charlie said the other day, he said, when you guys reopen, he goes, it's the farmers' turn to help you guys out because you helped us out so much in the drought. So I suppose what it will do is it'll bring people like chefs and restaurateurs even closer again to their producers. So and I think that's happening already. We buy so much more direct these days than what we used to, and our connections with those guys is so much stronger because we live the ups and downs with them. And since this has happened, I've been talking to plenty of the producers and suppliers and whatever, and they're on their knees too. So I've been trying to help them out as much as possible. And they're obviously doing stuff online and delivering and whatever. But I suppose it's just working together. And I think when we all come out of this, we've two industries that have had two of the hardest years, or they will be probably the two hardest years ever. Massive drought and then the coronavirus, what's happened to us. So I think it will just make us stronger.
Why did you become a chef, and what do you love about the industry?
Why did I become a chef? Because I hated school, and I would have done anything to get out of school. And I did home science when I was in year 9 and 10, and I kind of liked it, not just because it was being 19 girls, but and I got something free to eat in the afternoon. I'm one of those guys, Anthony, that once I started it, at an early age of 15, I just fell in love with it, and I've always loved it, and I will forever always love it because it's always been very kind to me. It's been a great industry. It's an industry that you're always learning. No matter what. And, I have to be really honest, even in the last 6 weeks, I think I've had takeaway twice. Not that I'm telling anyone not to buy takeaway, especially not now that we're going into that model. But I've really enjoyed, cooking at home. And look, I always do cook at home, once or twice a week, but, to be cooking 6-7 times a week, I've really, really enjoyed it. And I've been doing little videos that started, just a small one. And the comments I get from all my TV mates and whatever is, who's filming you? And they can't quite work it out. And it's my 14-year-old daughter.
Oh,
And what I love about it is that, even, I've got a cool room at the back of my kitchen, and I'll forget something and I'll run down to the cool room. And when I watch the video back after it finishes, I see that my daughter has, zoomed in on whatever I'm cooking, and she hasn't followed me. And she'll say to me, when I'm cooking, she'll go, "Geez, Dad, you're really good at that. You do it so quick, and you're really good talking to the phone, or the camera or whatever." And it's really been the first time, she's always baked a little bit, Amelia, but she's actually really quite interested in food. And and what I'm doing and how to cook it. And I think that's why she's been so good filming it, is because she's actually really interested in it.
Restaurants and food service have had to adapt and change, and you guys took time to pause and consider how you would respond. What's some of the innovations and creativeness that you've seen out there that's impressed you about this little period with people in the industry?
Oh, look, the industry's resilient, and there's no question. I think the technology that we're seeing with the whole takeaway, and whether it's packaging or what items, or go on the menu and how you do it, and I know that when I was looking at the Chiswick menu with Laura on what to put, and it was all based around some of the classic dishes, but also thinking about how will that travel, how will that get to the home in one shape, and how will it still represent what we do. I just think that in times like this, you've got to somehow be creative. I see all this stuff online where people, Zooming. I'd Zoomed 8 mates one night and showed them how to cook a dish. It was hysterical. One, I realised none of them can bloody cook. And two, it came up with the idea of, wow, this is quite creative. So hopefully, probably not this week, but next week I'm going to start an online cooking school, and deliver the items to people, and then they can just get on board and Zoom and pay a small fee, and for the fruit and veg and meat and whatever, and they can watch me cook. And that's kind of exciting. I've also done quite a few corporate Zooms, and that's probably the only income that I've had coming in for the last sort of 4 or 5 weeks. Some big guys that are quite interested in looking after their VIPs or their staff, and I've just got online and just shown them how to cook a dish, and that's been quite fun actually, because you're obviously interacting with people that obviously know each other quite well, and I suppose the difference is when you've got a cooking class and you've got 20 people in front of you, they're quite intimidated and they just sit there and be really quiet. Is where when you put them on a camera and they're not right in front of you and they've got a glass of wine and they're feeling relaxed, it's quite funny, and they would probably speak up. I did one the other day that one guy forgot his lemon, and all of a sudden, because I could see him, and he's disappeared, and he's popped up 5 minutes later. He goes, "I've just gone down the street to grab a lemon." Like, it's been funny, and that's been a fun thing to do. So hopefully I'll do a little bit more of that, and so if there's any corporates out there that want to do the Zoom classes, I'm open to it.
Well, you don't want to give them too many tips and tricks. They'll be a bit more critical next time they're in your restaurant, won't they?
Yeah, they might be. They might be. Look, I'll tell you what, I learnt very quickly after that first one with the 8 mates is that, you do pretty simple stuff, because they got no idea.
Now, a lot of our guests on this series have spoken about how important mentors were to them through their career, and sort of the lack of that mentorship that's currently in the industry. But I know that you're involved in a lot of programs, and it's a really important thing to you to train the younger people. I just wondered what you would say to younger people in the industry that are affected by this and perhaps disillusioned.
Yeah, look, that's a hard one, and that's a tough one, because I've always said to people, to be in this industry, you've got to love it, because if you don't love it, it's just too damn bloody hard. I think with anything, if you're passionate about something, you'll do well at it. It's a hard industry, and it's just got a lot harder. And, I hear a lot of people say all the time that, after this, there's going to be a lot less restaurants. There's going to be, lots of opportunities out there. And, for people that want to take it and open their own venue. And, I'm being really honest when I say this, is that, and there's probably a lot of kids out there that were ready to take that leap. Make sure you are financially secure. and make sure that you've done your research in what you're about to do, because the last thing we want to see is a lot of people sort of take up those opportunities and fall flat on their face, because that just won't help the industry at all. I think with any business, you've got to really do your numbers and your projections and make sure that it's viable before you get into it and get lots of advice. I know over the last sort of 10 years I've given, I won't name any, but I've given many chefs that own their restaurants now lots of advice, and I've always said, be careful, make sure you get advice off other people that know a little bit better before you start signing leases and personal guarantees, because you don't want to get yourself in a position where you fall flat again.
What's it going to feel like when you open the doors to your restaurant and welcome people back in for the first time in a full running restaurant?
Oh, mate, I'll be there. I'll be there, no question. I hope if we open in that way that everything's reopens. I think it'll be one hell of a party for the first few months. I think everyone is so desperate to get out. I get worried about what it's going to be like the 8-9 months after that happens, when we realise that there's so much debt everywhere, and what's it going to do to the economy. So I don't know. I think that we might see a boom when it happens, and I think it might lapse a little bit again. So we've got to be a little bit careful on how we do it and how we spend. I think everyone's going to be very cautious of what they do. There's no doubt, and how they reopened and don't get carried away, because people aren't spending at the moment. I don't think people might splurge a little bit for a few months, but then they'll sort of start to realise that, wow, I'm so far behind where I was, so maybe I should be a bit more careful.
What about the opportunities moving forward once we get through this, for a vibrant sort of hospitality sector, leaving behind some of the issues, perhaps, if we can get on top of them? What are the opportunities ahead?
Oh, look, I think there's a massive opportunity here now to clean up, what issues that we have, payroll and all that sort of stuff. And I'm not going to go into that too much, but there are a lot of issues with that and a lot of confusion with that, and I think that would help benefit a lot of people, and it would obviously cut a big cost out of restaurants if it was a little bit simpler. Because no one really knows, I think, what it really is these days, who is compliant and who's not. I'm lucky that I've never been instigated in that, and I hope I never am, because I feel as though I've always done the right thing. But it's probably a clean slate for a lot of things. I think there will be opportunities with leases and landlords and to reset a lot of things, things that have probably got too expensive for people. Food costs, that might reset a little bit. Things have been, getting more and more expensive. I just think, what we will do is we will look at everything and look where we spend money and see how we can run the business better and tighter.
Now, you've got Chiswick doing takeaway. How hard is it transforming what you do in the restaurant to the takeaway model? And you sort of briefly mentioned North Bondi Fish. We'll do it shortly as well. Is there any sort of funny stories in the background of trying to pull that together with that A team that you have? And what does Chiswick at home look like?
Yeah, look, there was always a conversation in the beginning. It's like, well, you've got 7 or 8 chiefs. Where are the Indians? And that's not true. We've got a lot of the other guys that are coming in and helping too. It's not just all the senior guys. It's that part's a lot of fun, I have to say. It's like we've got all these people they all know each other, of course, but they're all from different restaurants and they're all sort of now working together. And I think that's a nice thing about it. We're all working together for the one thing, and Chiswick at home. Well, of course you can't completely transform that into dining at home, because Chiswick is an experience with the garden and the room and the noise and everything else that goes with it. But if we can give them a taste of what Chiswick is, and that's good, hearty, sort of large sort of shared meals. And we've chosen things that travel really well. The lamb shoulder, of course, and the roast chook, and we put a little bit of Aria in there. Aria was very well known for that, the lunch duck pie that we used to do. It goes all the way back to Paddington in the early 90s. And I just thought, that one's a great one that would travel really well. And I actually had one last night at home, and God, it was bloody good.
I wish you'd sent them interstate.
Yeah, look, you know what? I might just make them and not cook them and freeze them down. I know fixed meats and havricks are desperately to get their hands on them, so maybe we might wholesale them a little bit at one point. So it is food that can travel. North Bondi fish. Well, hopefully that'll be more local. Fish and chips. People are screaming out in Bondi. They want more grog and cocktails. They love the cocktails down there, so we'll do more of that sort of stuff, which is great. So Bondi, and coming into winter, we might make a big fish pie and things like that. That always go really well for down there, Bullabays and stuff like that we can sort of seal and they can be able to take it home. So I think that'll work. I know that Chiswick is opening this week, but the amount of forward sales for Mother's Day and whatever is just insane, so we're going to...
well, that's really good to hear.
Yeah, we're going to have a massive week the first week, and just hopefully that it'll continue on.
What has that reconnection with your team felt like, and what are you missing from hospitality at the moment?
Look, the reconnection with the team, I've always been connected with them, so I've been talking to them quite frequently. And, it's just nice to sort of see them all together, I suppose, working. They're obviously working different shifts and whatever else, but they're sort of connecting with each other, and that's nice to see. Look, I just think that's an important part of what a team is, to work side by side and connect and look forward to, what's going to happen at the end of this whole bloody dilemma that we've got.
Well, mate, it's always amazing to have a chat, and good luck with the Chiswick takeaway, and I look forward to seeing it sent interstate by this time next week.
And, I hope so, buddy. I hope so. Look, I just want to thank you for I've been listening to this, and I find it really insightful and talking, or listening to other industry guys, and it's I take my hat off to you, because it's all about supporting each other, and you've been a great support. And I think by doing this, it's great to see that you're getting behind the industry, and well, our industry is your industry too, I suppose. So it's just a great initiative, buddy. I thank you for it.
Thank you, Matt, and thanks for the great chat, and talk soon.
Pleasure, mate.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we share the stories of Australia's hospo community, suppliers and producers in search of hope during this pandemic. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Stay safe and be well.